Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by superb voice acting.
That is quite cryptic.
It will make sense at the end of the story.
Oh, are we finally getting a great mystery? That would be wonderful.
It would, wouldn't it?
Not going to happen, is it?
Afraid not.
Listen, my dear Miss Egan, I have taken your actions for long enough. I took a gamble with you and Robert, and this is what I've seen. I think it's time for a change. Well, hello. What are you doing up at this hour? That gun. What are you going to do with that? Put it down. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Don't. Oh, the scorpion. The scorpion.
That's how my brother died, Inspector. I see. I thought when I found this record on his dictaphone that it might contain some clue as to his murder. It doesn't tell us a thing.
Don't be so sure, Mr. Spencer.
What do you mean?
Well, your brother mentioned the word scorpion. That might mean something.
I hope so.
By the way, Mr. Spencer, what was your brother dictating when he was killed?
He was finishing up his new play.
I see. Well, I guess I've seen enough in here.
Would you like to meet the others?
Yes, I would.
They're in the library. Right through this door, Inspector. Boys, I want you to meet Inspector Harris. Inspector, this is Roger DeHaven.
How do you do, Inspector?
This is Professor Marco.
How do you do, Inspector?
Professor?
Well, I'm not a real professor. That is just my professional name. You see, I'm an astrologer. I tell fortunes by the stars.
Why are you all here?
You see, Inspector, Professor Marco, Roger DeHaven, my brother and I are all members of the same club.
And it so happens that all of us have birthdays in the same week, so each year we all come up here and celebrate.
Does the word scorpion mean anything to any of you?
Scorpion? No, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Why do you ask, Inspector?
Well, you see, before Spencer died, he was dictating a scene for his new play over the dictaphone. He was interrupted when someone came in and shot him. With his dying breath, he repeated the word scorpion several times.
Say, Inspector, isn't the scorpion a sign of death?
Yes, but I don't think he meant that. No, I think he was trying to give us a clue as to the identity of his murderer. Of course. Why didn't I think of it before?
What do you mean, Inspector?
I know what your brother was trying to say when he referred to the scorpion.
You do?
Yes. And I'm arresting you, Professor Marco, for the murder of Howard Spencer.
How does the inspector know that Professor Marco is the murderer? We'll give you the solution in just a moment, but first...
Wrong. That voice on the dictaphone recording sounded quite familiar.
What are you suggesting?
Well, if I didn't know better, I would say, that is your poorly disguised voice.
Now, why would I do that? I wasn't even alive in the 1940s.
Still, there is some tomfoolery afoot.
Sure, like this murder. Not a single clue, and that scorpion thing doesn't make any sense.
Perhaps not, but since you were there, I think you know more than you are saying.
BG, that's crazy talk.
And now, back to our story.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Marco has confessed to his crime. Spencer's reference to a scorpion puzzled me for a while. But then I realized that a scorpion is also a sign of the zodiac. But that didn't mean anything either, since it refers to people born in November, and all the people concerned in this case had their birthdays this week. Then I concluded that Spencer was referring to the zodiac as a whole. And was there anyone in this case who could be associated with the zodiac? Yes, Professor Marco. the astrologer, who tells fortunes by the stars.
Okay, I will come clean. The dictation portion of this FFM was so bad that I had to recreate it.
So it was your voice.
It was.
I think you should have recreated the entire mess. This was a very dumb story.
It had its moments.
Like when?
The dictation sequence was superbly acted.
Say it enough, and you might believe it.
That you say?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I'm pretty excited about the show today. I'm going to review an audiobook that I just found. It is exciting, the most original story I've heard in years, and at times, it's downright funny. We'll do that in just a minute. Then, we have stories from you guys. They're a collection of ghost stories sent in by you that all have the common thread of fire. I learned a few things while putting these together. Our featured story is a detective drama from the OTR series Richard Diamond, Private Detective. In this one, Diamond has to solve Mr. Walker's problem. So why wait? What do you say we just get to the show? Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Audible has sponsored the show now since July of 2019. We have reviewed more than 140 audiobooks, and the list keeps growing. Did you know that Audible has over 200,000 books available? And a lot of those are included in the free catalog. Audible is amazing, and it is the perfect companion to Ron's Amazing Stories. If you like this podcast, you're going to love Audible. So what am I listening to? Starter Villain by John Scalzi, narrated by Will Wheaton. Every once in a while, I get surprised by a book. I think the concept sounds stupid, but when I listen, I'm so taken with the story, it becomes a fast favorite. That is what happened with Starter Villain. I probably would not have given this book a chance if not for the fact that Will Wheaton narrates it. In case you didn't know, Will is one of the best at telling a story. The tagline for the book is this: inheriting your uncle's supervillain business is more complicated than you might think, particularly when you discover who's running the place. The picture on the cover of the book is that of a common house cat. Sounds silly to me, but let me tell you a bit more about the story. Charlie's life is going nowhere fast. A divorced substitute teacher living with his cat in a house his siblings want to sell. All he wants to do is open a pub downtown, if only the bank would approve his loan. Then his long-lost uncle, Jake, dies. Here's a clip from the book.
I learned about the death of my Uncle Jake in a deeply unexpected way, which was from the CNBC Squawk Box morning show. I had Squawk Box on from force of habit. When I was a business reporter for the Chicago Tribune, I would turn it on in the mornings in rotation with Bloomberg and Fox Business, while I and my wife Janine got ourselves ready for our respective days. These days, I had less need of it. Substitute teachers do not usually need to be kept up on the state of the Asian markets in order to babysit a bunch of students in a 7th grade English class. But old habits, it turns out, actually do die hard. Thus it was, as I was preparing my peanut butter on toast, I heard the name Jake Baldwin from the iPad I had running on the kitchen island. I stopped mid-peanut butter spread, knife in hand, as co-host Andrew Ross Sorkin announced that my Uncle Jake, reclusive billionaire owner of the third largest chain of parking structures in North America, had died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 67. "Are you hearing this?" I said to my breakfast partner, who was not my wife Janine because she was no longer my wife and no longer living with me. She was now back in her hometown of Boston dating an investment banker, and if her Instagram account was to be believed, spending most of her time being well-lit in enviable vacation spots around the globe. My breakfast partner was Hera, an orange and white cat who, after I had retreated to my childhood home after the divorce and layoff, had emerged from the backyard bushes and informed me through meowing that she lived with me now. Hera's breakfast was Meow Mix. She was eating on the center island and was watching Squawk Box with me, presumably to decide if Andrew Ross Sorkin was a prey animal she could smack around. I had not known my Uncle Jake was sick with anything, much less pancreatic cancer, which was the disease that had also felled fellow billionaire Steve Jobs. My brain, on journalistic autopilot, had started writing the lead graph for my uncle's obituary. Have I mentioned that old habit to die hard? To be fair, it wasn't that Uncle Jake had been hiding it from me. It was that he hadn't been in contact with me at all since I was 5 years old. Jake and my dad had a falling out at my mom's funeral. I vaguely remember the yelling, and then after that, it was like Jake simply didn't exist. Dad preferred it that way, and Jake must have too. Jake didn't come to Dad's funeral in any event. As for me, I didn't think about Jake at all until I was in college and started writing business-related articles for the Daily Northwestern and discovered that half the parking structures in Evanston were owned by BLP, a private company majority-owned and entirely controlled by Jake. I tried to score an interview, figuring I might have an in, but BLP didn't have a PR department or even contact information on its website. When I got married, I dragged an address for Jake out of my dad and sent my uncle an invite, mostly to see what would happen. Jake didn't show, but sent a gift, berry spoons and a cryptic note. I stopped thinking about him after that. Jake had almost no media presence and never showed up in the news, so this was easy enough to do. Jake's lack of paper trail was giving CNBC fits, however. I watched as Sorkin and presumably his writers struggled to say anything about a man who was obviously important, and billionaires are important to CNBC at least, but had also made his billions in the least sexy way possible. Steve Jobs had given the world the Macintosh and the iPhone, and lifestyle tech like the tablet I was watching Squawk Box on. Uncle Jake had given people a place to park a car. CNBC solved this lack of drama problem by bringing on a reporter from Parking Magazine, the trade rag of the National Parking Association, and yes, both of those things are real. "Oh, boo!" I said when the reporter came on and threw a corner of my peanut butter toast at the iPad. It bounced off the screen, leaving a peanutty smear, and landed in front of Hera, who looked up at me, confused. "It's friggin' Peter Reese," I explained, waving at Peter's obviously being recorded on a laptop face as he explained what impact Jake's death would have on the mission-critical world of parking garages. He is a terrible reporter. I should know I worked with him. Hera, not impressed, ate the crumb of peanut butter toast.
Okay, so where does all this lead? Well, it turns out that his Uncle Jake leaves his supervillain business, complete with Island Volcano Lair, to Charlie. But becoming a supervillain isn't all giant laser death rays and lava pits. Jake had enemies, and now they're coming after Charlie. His uncle might have been a stand-up, old-fashioned kind of villain, but these guys are the real thing. It's up to Charlie to win the war his uncle started against a league of supervillains. But what weapons does Charlie have? Well, he has ununionized dolphins, hyper-intelligent talking spy cats, and a terrifying henchperson at his side that makes going bad look pretty good. Starter Villain is awesome. Its selling points include executive-level cats, awful billionaires, and vengeful working-class dolphins. It has an easygoing, tongue-in-cheek style that makes it a pleasure to listen to. The author, John Scalzi, is known for darker stuff, but he's also a brilliant writer of satire. He has a clean writing style, excels in writing dialogue, and captivates readers with ease. The characters and their interactions had me laughing. Good guys are instantly likable and quirky. Bad guys are kind of fun too. But what makes this audiobook great is Wil Wheaton's pace, enthusiasm, and voiceover work. It truly is an amazing adventure and experience. It might be the best audiobook I've heard in a long time. Now, if that appeals to you, head to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories and you can have Starter Villain for free. Here's what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out the service. You can stream or download thousands of included audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals in the Plus catalog. There is so much to do, you'll never run out of materials. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. This story alone is truly worth it. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Again, this week we have a theme. Fire plays a role in every story sent in by you guys, the listeners. Not a simple flame or an odd occurrence around the fireplace. These are about ghost flames, or sometimes called will-o'-the-wisp, spook lights, or even corpse candles. The way ghost flames are reported depends upon the location and period where the sighting took place. For example, R.C. McLaughlin wrote about such ghost lights in the Scottish Highlands in 1897, where lights were seen prior to deaths occurring at those locations. In these stories, the lights were referred to as corpse candles. In 1902, newspapers reported a ghost flame appearing over a mountain where a woman's body was earlier found in a barrel. Towns across the world where this phenomenon takes place often attribute the flames to fairies, angels, or even demons. Who can say what they are? But here are 3 stories about them. Our first story comes from the great state of Texas and was sent in by returning listener Maddie Ross. Maddie calls her story Ghost Hand. Hello, Ron. I heard you asking for ghost stories, and here's mine. So about 2 years ago, my friend was living with his parents in an old house. They are devout Christians and had the house blessed multiple times due to other paranormal stuff that had happened there. They wouldn't talk about it other than to say that the house has issues. Anyways, after living in this house for about a year, my friend's little sister started waking up screaming at night. They assumed it was just nightmares, but she refused to talk about it. One night, everything came to a head. She had gone to bed early, and the rest of the family was heading that way when she woke up and started screaming herself hoarse. Her dad came into the room, and she was lying on the floor under her bed, screaming and shaking. Her dad pulled her out and asked what happened. Apparently, she had seen a flame arm come out of the floor and pull a book out of the bookcase. Her dad asked her which book it was, and she told him. He walked over to the bookcase, and that exact book was on the floor, and the cover was burned. The pattern was in the shape of a hand. Long story short, they did some research and found out that just over 20 years ago, someone had been murdered in that exact same spot where the bookcase was. They blessed the house again, had a psychic come, but have since moved away because it didn't seem to do a thing. That house stands empty to this day. Maddie Ross, Texas. A flame arm. Crazy. These types of stories really make me shiver. Was it menacing? Were the other events in the house malevolent? I guess we'll never know. I think the fact that they moved says volumes, and I don't blame them a bit. Thank you for this story, Maddie. Our next story also comes from Texas and was sent in by Seth Wood. Seth has titled this story, The Big Thicket Ghost Light. I did a little research on this one, and I want to share what I found with you before we read Seth's story. The Big Thicket Light, also known as the Saratoga Light, appears to travelers along Old Bragg Road in Hardin County, Texas. The road was originally a rail bed for a train that traveled from Bragg Station to Saratoga from 1901 through 1934. The lights were reported almost as soon as people started traveling through the area, and news reports about the lights started to increase in the 1960s. National Geographic even published an article on the ghost flame in October of 1974 with an actual photo of the light. I'll have that for you in the show notes. Now, here is Seth's story. Hello, Ron. Thank you for your podcast. My family and I listen together each week and chat about the stories you share. It's something I personally look forward to each week. I know that you like ghost stories, and I have one that happened to me. We live near a pretty famous haunted site. It's called the Big Thicket Ghost Light, and even has its very own site marker that has been there since the 1960s. Back in 1995, my brother, my newlywed wife, and a friend of ours climbed into a Volkswagen Beetle and headed to Bragg Road. We wanted to find out if all the hoopla surrounding the ghost was real and to see if there was any truth to the stories. When we got there, it was dusk, so we could still see the dirt road and the tall overhanging trees. I saw a small yellow light that seemed to be about a half a mile or more away. The more we stared at it, the brighter and closer it became. Then suddenly the color changed to amber and the light started moving from side to side. I got out of the car along with my brother, and suddenly it turned white, and it was about the diameter of a bowling ball. It stopped in front of our car some 25 yards away and then shot up towards the sky. We looked at each other in stunned silence. This was not what we had read about. But the night wasn't over yet. We again looked down the road, and the amber light was back, waving back and forth. This time, it didn't get any closer. I went to the car to get my camera, and as I did, I felt a hard shove. Thinking my friend was messing around, I told him to knock it off. I heard his voice from a few feet away.
I didn't shove you.
Turns out I was alone. Then my wife screamed. I turned to her, and she was pointing towards the woods. A flame was floating towards us very slowly. Not needing any more encouragement, we all jumped back in the bug, and we bugged out of there. Seth Wood, Beaumont, Texas. Good choice, Seth. I probably would have done the same thing, but probably a lot sooner. I found this little ditty on the internet. Town urges timber cutters to not cut timber on haunted road. Houston, AP. The East Texas town of Saratoga is once again up in arms over salesmen who want to cut and sell the timber from a haunted ghost road. But the residents want nothing to do with spoiling the spirit world that they claim that haunts the 8-mile sandy path that seems more like a tunnel with its thick canopy of trees and other foliage. For the 5th time in the last 30 years, Hardin County commissioners have moved to sell the timber, and for the 5th time, residents have objected to removing any of the roadside timber that provides the spooky ambience. How about that? Thank you for your story, Seth. Our last Ghost Light special comes from Colorado, and it was sent in by Danielle Harvey. Danielle calls her story, This Light I Can't Explain. I am a pathological paranormal nut. The first time I heard about you was on Jim Harold's Campfire, and in fact, we both appeared on the same show. Never written in before, but became a fan as soon as I listened to you for the first time. I decided to retell you the story that I told Jim that night on his podcast. I was heading home from a school event. The year was 1984, and I was driving alone along a stretch of road heading home. Just then, a flame of light appeared before me. I slammed on the brakes and came to a stop just inches from the apparition. It had no shape that I could see, and it looked like just what I said, an amber flame just floating across the road. It paid no attention to me and went on its merry way. I sat there for a minute after it was gone and tried to make sense of it all. All I could do was remember something my grandmother once told me, and she said that sometimes the dead just have to be noticed to move on. I never saw it again. The next day I was reading the newspaper about a young girl that had been struck and killed by a horse trader who had fallen asleep at the wheel. Where do you think the accident took place? If you said the same area that I encountered the flame, you would be right. Maybe Grandma was right after all. Danielle Harvey, Grand Junction, Colorado. Another ghost flame and another story. You know, I love it when I can get 3 stories that line up so well. To Danny, I say, thank you for sharing this, and I'm sorry it took so long to get it on the show. Also, I think it's amazing that we sort of met on Jim's Campfire podcast. Our featured story comes from one of my favorite old-time radio detective shows, Richard Diamond, Private Detective. It was created by Blake Edwards and aired on radio from 1949 to 1953, and then on television from 1957 to 1960. The radio version starred Dick Powell, who was an actor, singer, musician, producer, director, and even the head of a studio. He came to stardom as a musical comedy performer. However, he showed some versatility and successfully transformed himself into a hard-boiled leading man. In fact, he was the first actor to portray Private Detective Philip Marlowe on screen. Our story today builds on that experience, but in a slightly different way. Diamond is tough, but he's also pretty go-lucky. The scripts for these dramas are excellent, which should come as no surprise because they're all written by Blake Edwards. In this episode, Diamond is hired by a plumber for reasons that Mr. Walker really won't get into. Diamond takes the case, and the next thing that happens is murder. It is titled Mr. Walker's Problem, and it first aired on April 28, 1952. A little word of warning on this one. This one does promote smoking, and the advertisements on this one should make you laugh just a bit.
The makers of Camel cigarettes present Dick Powell as Richard Diamond, Private Detective. Why don't you smoke the cigarette so many doctors enjoy?
In a nationwide survey a few years ago, 113,597 doctors were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" The brand named most was Camel.
It was true then, it is true now, because repeated surveys have been made.
And every time, the brand named most has been Camel. Yes, these surveys show that more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
Why don't you smoke the cigarette so many doctors enjoy? Now we bring you another transcribed adventure with Richard Diamond, Private Detective, starring Dick Powell.
Diamond Detective Agency, Mr. Diamond speaking.
Excuse me, I must have the wrong number.
Oh, is that you, Helen?
This is me, Helen.
Oh, well, I thought maybe you might be a client. How are you, dear?
Well, I'm fine, but what's wrong with you?
Wrong?
Yes, what means at Diamond Detective Agency, Mr. Diamond speaking? You usually come on the phone like Roy Rogers and his horse Trigger. How come no slogans?
Well, to tell you the truth, dear, I couldn't think of one this week. Anyway, aren't you the gal who's always after me to get some culture?
This is culture?
Ain't nothing else but. You just want a jaw if you got something important to talk about,
This is Friday, you know.
Happens every week.
Yes, but this is the Friday when if you haven't got a client by noon, we're going for a drive, remember?
By Jove, that's right.
Well, by Jove, it is now 11:43 and 15 seconds, approximately.
Sounds like someone gave you a new...
What does that broken sentence mean? Client walk in?
Shh, quiet. Don't talk so loud, dear. This one looks like he might scare easily. Good morning.
Good morning. Are you Mr. Diamond?
I am Mr. Diamond. Won't you come in?
Said the spider to the fly. I'll hang up, Rick. Call me back if you have time.
All right, dear. Bye.
Bye.
Well, come in, Mr.
Walker. Thomas Walker. I do hope I didn't interrupt your conversation, Mr. Diamond.
Oh, it wasn't important. Just my broker calling to tell me I've been wiped out. But enough of me, Mr. Walker. Let's talk about you.
Would it be all right if I sat down? I'm a little nervous this morning.
Well, you do seem a little worked up over something. Sure. Sit down, Mr. Walker. Sit down anywhere at all.
Thank you. Are you engaged, Mr. Diamond?
Well, not yet, but she's working at it. Just between the two of us, I think if I can hold off through the month of June...
Oh, no, Mr. Diamond. I meant, are you working for anyone on a caper, I believe you call them?
Oh. No. We honest and true private detectives just call them cases. As a matter of fact, you're in luck. I am at liberty to listen to your proposal. That is, if you wish to engage me.
Good. It's taken me some time to work up enough courage to come to a private detective. I don't think I could do it again.
I don't think you could either. All right, Mr. Walker, just what is it that's troubling you?
Well, I hope, Mr. Diamond, that it's nothing more than my suspicious mind. Oh, don't misunderstand me. I'm not by nature a suspicious person, but I have stumbled across something that I think should be brought to the attention of the local authorities.
Then why not bring it to the attention of the local authorities?
Well, because I'm afraid they'll laugh at me.
So you want me to go down and let them laugh at me, huh?
No. At least not right away. Not until after you've confirmed my suspicions or proved them ridiculous. In either event, you will know then what to do.
Well, before you lose me entirely, Mr. Walker, maybe you'd better tell me just what it is you want me to do.
I think the best thing to do is... Yes, I think that would be the best. That way they wouldn't
Remember me, Mr. Walker?
Mr. Diamond, I want you to follow someone. Shadow him is the word I believe you use.
Shadow?
Yes. You do that type of work, don't you?
Oh, occasionally. Just who is it you want me to shadow, Mr. Walker?
Carter, I believe his name is. Joseph Carter. He must be the ringleader.
Oh, this Joseph Carter leads a ring?
Well, as I said, Mr. Diamond, these are only my suspicions. If you're going to laugh at me,
Now, take it easy, Mr. Walker. I'm just trying to get as much information from you as I can. Who is this Carter fellow, and where can I get in touch with him?
He's a chemist. At least he's supposed to be. And I don't want you to get in touch with him, Mr. Diamond. I just want you to follow him. Oh, it could be disastrous if you spoke to him about my suspicions.
Mr. Walker, you may not believe this, but I don't even know yet what your suspicions are.
And I think it would be best if I didn't tell you.
Oh.
That way you can form your own opinions about what is going on.
Mr. Walker, this is getting tougher as you go along. I don't even know where to find this Joseph Carter.
I have that all arranged, Mr. Diamond. Rather clever plan, too, if I do say so myself. Oh? You see, I'm meeting him for lunch, and he thinks we're going to talk about his wife.
By Jove, that is clever.
Yes, isn't it? Now, after lunch, that will be around 1 o'clock, I'll drop him off on the corner of First and Elm. Do you know where that is?
Uh-huh.
Good. Now, my car is a blue Essex sedan. When you see it pull around the corner, you be prepared to follow whoever steps out.
Oh, gosh, I haven't done this since the correspondence school sent me my diploma. All right, Mr. Walker, what happens then?
Then, Mr. Diamond, you stay with him night and day. You do have operators who work in shifts, don't you?
Oh, sure.
Oh, good. Now, the important thing is to impress upon your men the seriousness of what they're doing. Under no condition are they to let him out of their sight.
Oh, that's a cinch. Couldn't you give us something a little harder, like following 4 people at the same time?
Well, no. One of them might get suspicious, Mr. Diamond, and that wouldn't do.
Oh.
Now, about your money.
Oh, yes, by all means. My fee is $100 a day in expenses, Mr. Walker. And believe me, you're going to have some...
100? Isn't that a little steep?
It's too much, Mr. Walker?
Well, no, I suppose not. I'll have to write you out a check. Will 300 be enough? That'll pay you up till Monday.
Well, yes.
By then, you will have cracked this thing. Or written me off as a suspicious old fool.
Now, Mr. Walker, think how few private detectives there would be if no one listened to their clients' suspicions.
There you are, Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Oh, and here is my card. Both my business and home phone numbers are on it.
Oh, fine. All right, thank you. Walker Plumbing Company? You, Mr. Walker, are a plumber?
Yes. It is surprising, isn't it?
I smiled at him as he went out and then called Helen and broke the sad news. She pouted a little, I cooed a little, then we both hung up feeling very good inside. I had an hour to kill, so I decided to get a little fresh air. I was half a block from my office building when a whole ounce of imported perfume floated out of a doorway. It circled around a while and finally settled over my eyes. What I could see through the haze would have caused any airline pilot to come in for an emergency landing. And even though I don't fly myself, I put the flaps down and kind of slowed up a little.
Why, Mr. Diamond, I do believe you're staring.
Oh, sorry. Do I know you, please?
No, Mr. Diamond, it isn't that good. And of course you know me.
Oh, I do, huh? Oh, sure, I remember now. Monte Carlo, wasn't it? Only you were a blonde then, with the moonlight behind you, making a halo for your lovely head, and I'm just ad-libbing, so get me out of this. Who are you, lady?
Sandra Browning. And it wasn't Monte Carlo. Come on, I'll buy you a drink and refresh your memory.
All right. But I hope we can cover everything in an hour. There's quite a bit of you to cover, isn't there?
Heaps. Much too much to run through in an hour. You're working on a case, then?
The luck of Ricky Diamond. Yes, Miss Browning, I am in the midst of what my client calls a caper. Go on the payroll at 1 o'clock.
I see. And, just who is your client, Ricky?
We were going to talk about you, remember?
Oh, but I'm so dull, Mr. Diamond, and you're so fascinating.
True, yes.
This place look all right?
Fine.
Intimate, isn't it, Mr. Diamond?
Say, just how well do we know each other?
Can't you tell?
Honey, right now I probably could even tell you my name. And, I'm beginning to need that drink more and more. Shall we go mingle with those strangers? Stranger? As we walked over to a table, I shook my head a few times to clear it and get out of the danger zone of the perfume. I knew I'd never seen Miss Browning before. No, not that I've led a sheltered life, but something like her only happens once, and it usually costs an awful lot of money. Money I've never had. So, naturally, the same applied to Miss Browning. So, with renewed vigor and a firm grip on my wallet, I sat down beside her.
Cozy?
Too cozy. I'm a sort of a wide-open spaces man myself, and a couple of martinis. George?
George.
Now, about you, Miss B. Where was it our paths first crossed?
No, Mr. D, I've changed my mind. I'm going to make you guess. It'll be more fun that way.
Oh, and it will also be a long winter. Now, if we're going to get anything accomplished, maybe you better start talking. An hour goes pretty fast.
What happens in an hour that's so terribly important, Mr. Diamond?
A guess.
I don't want to guess. I want you to tell me.
You know, we may run out of things to talk about in a minute now.
Not if you tell me what I want to know. All right, I'll take a guess. Does this case have anything to do with, say, a bank?
Well, you tell me. Does it have something to do with, say, a bank?
You're fighting me, Mr. Diamond.
Who's fighting who? All I'm trying to find out is whether...
You're going to wish, Mr. Diamond, that you had talked to me.
Well. Conversation seems to have picked up a little. But we might as well save your breath, Sandra. I ain't talking and you ain't talking.
So, if you'll excuse me, I have to make a telephone call.
All of which left me with still a half hour to kill. I paid the check and then dropped by the 5th Precinct to say hello to Walt Levinson. He was sleeping, so I tiptoed back out and headed for the corner of 1st and Elm. I'd been there about 5 minutes when a guy whose face looked vaguely familiar came up and said,
Excuse me, is this a bus stop?
No, but there's a cab stand a block down the street.
Oh, thanks. I might have stood here for 3 days.
How's that?
I saw you waiting around, so I figured it was a bus stop. Guess I'll have to take a cab now. Say, if you're waiting for one, maybe we can split the fare?
Oh, no, thanks. Funny. I'd swear you were hanging around the 5th Precinct when I came out.
Oh? How long ago?
About 15 minutes.
Well, come to think of it, it's possible that you did. I went in to pay a traffic fine. Yeah.
Is that right? Speeding, was it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was. Those things do happen, you know.
Oh, yes. Of course, the really interesting part about all this is that the 5th Precinct doesn't accept traffic fines.
Huh?
You have to go all the way downtown to pay them.
You're kind of a smart aleck, aren't you?
Oh, yes. Life of the party. Just give me a lampshade and a bustle, and I'm a... Hey, what's the idea? A car spun around the corner just as the guy shoved me. I landed in the street, but rolled over in time to see the front door open and a body come spilling out, sliding to a stop against the curb. The guy with the phony ticket hopped on the running board, and the blue Essex sedan lost itself in the uptown traffic. Now, all I could do was sit there and look at the crumbled form lying in the gutter. Mr. Thomas Walker had given me a check for $300. That was to last until Monday. For Mr. Walker, Monday was just 2 days too many.
Before we continue with Richard Diamond, here are a few words about smoking enjoyment.
After all the cigarette mildness tests, including the famous 30-day Camel test, Camel leads all other brands by billions.
Here's how you can make your own 30-day Camel test. A sensible test of cigarette mildness based on steady smoking.
Smoke Camels, and Camels only for the next 30 days. In other words, go steady with Camels for 30 days. Pack after pack, week after week.
Here's what you'll find out from your own 30-day Camel test.
You'll see how rich, how flavorful Camels are, pack after pack. You'll discover how well Camels get along with your throat, week after week.
That does sound like a sensible way to judge a cigarette, doesn't it? So why not start your own 30-day Camel test tonight? It won't take you long to find out why Camel leads all other cigarettes in popularity by billions of cigarettes per year.
How mild can a cigarette be? Make the Camel 30-day test and you'll see. Smoke Camels and see.
And now, back to Richard Diamond, Private Detective, starring Dick Powell.
They abandoned the car about 4 blocks down the street, Rick. Too bad you didn't get a look at the guy behind the wheel.
Everything happened too fast, Walt.
Yeah. You feel all right now?
Yeah, just swell.
I guess the idea of all this is that somebody figured you and Walker knew too much.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense either, Rick. You said Walker wouldn't tell you a thing.
No, but he gave me $300. Between now and Monday, I'm going to try to earn it.
I could use the help. You got any idea who was gunning for him?
No, not exactly. But whoever it was kept pretty close tabs. He was followed to my office.
He tell you that?
Uh-uh.
Then how do you know?
Well, indirectly, a girl named Sandra Browning did. She said something else that's kind of kicking around in the back of my head, too.
Sandra Browning. That's the brunette you told me about?
Yeah, she seemed to think Walker said something to me about a bank.
But he didn't.
No, but that's what makes it so interesting. Oh, drop me off at that drugstore, will you, Walt? I want to look up a phone number.
Sandra?
A fellow named Joseph Carter.
Who's he?
Supposed to be a chemist. Walker told me about him. Well, thanks for the lift, Fatty. If anything happens, I'll get in touch with you. Mr. Carter?
Oh, yes, that's right.
Well, I'm a private detective. May I come in? I'd like to talk to you.
You, mean about my wife, Mr.
Diamond.
Oh.
Richard Diamond. What about your wife, Mr. Carter?
Well, nothing. I merely supposed. I mean, after all, you said you were a private detective.
Oh, yes. But I don't handle divorce cases, Mr. Carter.
Oh, I see. Then what...
I just want to ask you a couple of questions about a plumber named Walker. Thomas Walker. Do you know him?
A plumber? Now, that's strange. Mr. Walker called me on the phone this morning and asked me to meet him for lunch. He said it was important to me that I be there.
Were you?
Well, yes, I was. That is, I was at the appointed place at the proper hour, but this Mr. Walker never did make an appearance.
Oh, I see. You said, this Mr. Walker. Does that mean you didn't know him?
Not to my knowledge. The voice didn't register, and the name wasn't familiar. This is very interesting, Mr. Diamond. Would you like some coffee? I'll ring for the house.
No, thanks. If you didn't know Walker, Mr. Carter, why did you agree to have lunch with him?
Well, for several reasons. As I told you, he said it was important to me, and since I was going to be downtown anyway...
That isn't good enough, Mr. Carter.
Well, I'm afraid I don't understand.
Thomas Walker was killed less than an hour ago. You say you were supposed to have lunch with him. That puts you in a suspicious position.
Yes, I see. So that's what this is about. How did you get my name, Mr. Diamond?
Oh, that isn't important. What I want to know is why you agreed to have lunch with someone you didn't even know.
Well, this Walker fellow, he said some things over the phone.
What kind of things?
About my wife. He said it would be to my advantage to meet him and discuss it. Under the circumstances, I had nothing to lose, so I agreed.
Under what circumstances?
Well, you see, Mr. Diamond, my wife and I are, well, we're drifting apart.
Mm-hmm.
She's been seen with another man, a fellow named Dave Johnson.
Dave Johnson? Who's he?
Chap I sold my shop to when I retired last month. He and...
Oh, excuse me. I didn't know you had company. Oh.
Well, come in. Come in, Sandra. We were just...
No, I won't disturb you. Go right ahead with...
Oh, yes. Come in.
This is my wife, Sandra. Come in, dear. Come in.
I'd rather not.
Oh, it's all right. I was leaving anyway. Come right in, Mrs. Carter, isn't it?
Lieutenant Levinson.
Anything break, Fatty?
No, nothing but my head. I've been doing some thinking, Rick.
Well, since you've already pulled the punchline, go ahead.
What? Oh, look, Rick, you said this Sandra Browning.
Carter. Browning's a phony.
You know, someday you're going to meet a girl that gives you a right name and you won't know how to react. That's the trouble with guys.
As soon as you have finished the discourse, Fatty, we can get back to the plot. What have you been thinking?
Well, you said that this Miss Carter...
It's Mrs. Carter, Walt.
Will you stop that? I don't care if it's Mrs. Whippenpeffer. I want to know what she said. She did say something about a bank, didn't she?
She did?
Yeah, and you said something about a guy named Joseph Carter who's a chemist.
Walt, so help me. If you tell me they're married, I'll throw this phone from here to the 5th Precinct.
You do, and you'll never find out the startling news I'm about to unfold.
All right, unfold.
It's better. On the corner of 1st and Elm, on the very corner where you nearly met your demise, there is a bank.
That's very interesting.
You're darn tootin'. Right next door to this bank is a small shop with a sign painted on the window. Pretty good sign, too. Somebody took a lot of pains with it.
Walt,
All right. Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but the sign says Carter Chemistry Corporation.
Oh, that's what you've been thinking about.
Yeah. Only now it's even more interesting because of this Sandra Browning Carter girl. It's a definite connection.
Uh-huh. with Walker, the plumber, making the connection. Well, thanks, Walt, and, bye.
Oh, hello.
Hello? I'm looking for Mr. Carter. Is he in?
Ain't nobody here but me, and I'm getting ready to leave.
Closing up a little early, aren't you? It's only 4 o'clock. Oh, I see you're doing a little repair work in the back of the shop there.
Yeah, I had a little explosion in here a couple of days ago.
Oh, must have ripped up a little plumbing down that close to the floor.
Yeah, we're getting it fixed up. Sorry to rush out like this, buddy, but you know how it is. Friday afternoon, weekend coming up, you know.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, when you see Mr. Carter, just tell him Horace Crutchmeyer was in to see him. He'll understand.
Horace, well, tell you the truth, Horace, Mr. Carter don't come around here no more. He's retired. Sold out everything, lock, stock, and test tube.
Oh, is that so? Well, I'll get in touch with him at home. See you.
Yeah, see ya, Horace.
You know, this could turn out kind of silly, Rick. What if they don't show up?
Oh, they'll show, Fatty. I checked the floor plan of both buildings. Got it figured they'll break through about here.
How many of them do you think there'll be?
Just 3. If they knocked off Walker because he got suspicious, they won't cut anybody else in.
Is Carter in on this, Rick? It's his chemistry shop, isn't it?
No, not anymore. He sold out to a guy named Dave Johnson. You'll meet him as soon as they blast the ball out here.
The one I'm anxious to meet is this Sandra Browning Carter. Sounds like quite a dish.
Not my type, Walt. I like him a little more tender.
What's the other guy's name, the one who shoved Walker out of the car?
Don't know yet. I met him in the shop this afternoon. Well, you'll like him, too. He's got sort of an ingrown face.
You know, you gotta hand it to him, Rick. It's a pretty slick stunt they're pulling. Buying the shop next door to a bank, digging through the wall, and...
Shh. There they are, Walt. Maybe we'd better get over here.
Right.
What'd I tell you? Ever see anything so easy in your life?
Dave, does he have to keep talking? Can't you make him
Look,
keep
both
quiet?
of you knock it off and let's get busy, huh? We've only got till tomorrow morning.
Hit the lights, Rick.
Okay.
Hey,
Well.
Why, you...
Now, play it smart. We don't want to carry anyone out of here.
Oh, is this the bank you were talking about, Sandra? Still not talking, huh?
She doesn't look like much to me, Rick.
Now, Walt, don't be catty. Remember, she's been a very busy girl.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that they're broken into this kind of work, I guess they won't mind it so much for the next few years. Hmm? Mm-hmm.
But, Rick, why did Walker want you to follow Joseph Carter? He didn't have anything to do with this, did he?
No, but Walker thought he did. He tumbled to what was going on when he went in to repair the plumbing. Naturally, he figured Carter was behind it. Ain't I getting smarter as the months go by?
Uh-huh. And speaking of months going by,
Yes, dear.
it will soon be June, you know.
June. Oh, now there's a month to conjure with.
Oh, do you mean it, Rick?
Well, sure, June must be about my favorite. Let's see now. Don't I know a song with June in it?
Oh, Rick.
Let's see. June. Kind of a strange name to me, but, well, this might do it. Oh, it's a long, long while from May to December, but the days grow short when you reach September, when the autumn weather turns the leaves to flame. One hasn't got time for the waiting game. Oh, the days tumble down to a precious few. September, November, and these few precious days I'll spend with you. These precious days I'll spend with you.
Why, you faker, you. There wasn't a single June anywhere in that song.
Come to think of it, there wasn't.
You want to try again?
I guess not.
Something else you'd rather do?
Honey, what an opening that is. Come here.
Now, that's what I've been waiting for. More.
More?
More?
Honey, stop. If this keeps up, I won't be able to hold off till June.
Dick Powell will return in just a moment.
What's America's most popular cigarette?
Camel is in the lead by billions of cigarettes per year.
One reason is Camel's rich, full flavor. A flavor no other cigarette has.
And another reason is Camel's pack after pack, week after week mildness.
Tonight, start enjoying the one cigarette America enjoys most. It's Camel, of course.
Yes, of all the cigarettes on the market today, Camel is in the lead by billions of cigarettes per year.
How mild can a cigarette be? Smoke Camels and see.
Here's Dick Powell with a special message.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to bring a little extra cheer and comfort to our hospitalized servicemen and veterans, the makers of Camels send them thousands of packs of gift Camels every week. This week, the gift Camels go to Veterans Hospitals, Clarksburg, West Virginia, and Miles City, Montana. U.S. Naval Hospital, Corona, California. U.S. Army Station Hospital, Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. The Military Air Transport Service, which evacuates virtually all overseas wounded personnel. Now, until next week, enjoy Camels. I always do.
Well, that was really an entertaining story. But the truth is, all of these Richard Diamond private detective tales are great. As I mentioned, all the stories for this radio series were written by Blake Edwards. Edwards began his career in the 1940s as an actor, but he soon began writing screenplays and radio scripts before turning to producing and directing. His best-known films include Breakfast at Tiffany's in 1961, Days of Wine and Roses in 1962, The Great Race in 1965, the infamous Bo Derek film 10 in 1979, Victor Victoria in 1982, Blind Date in 1987, and of course, the hugely successful Pink Panther series with British actor Peter Sellers. In 2004, he received an honorary Academy Award in recognition of his writing, directing, and producing. All in all, Blake had an extraordinary body of work. That was episode 623. It was made possible by Matty Ross, Seth Wood, and Danielle Harvey, who contributed to the show. Thank you guys. Your stories were amazing. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.